So Hamish, one of the things that often people find helpful is to have a framework or an understanding for how the body works to make pain and other ways in which it tries to protect you from harm, so that we can identify all the different things that might be influencing your pain, and then potentially identify the opportunities whereby we might be able to influence those processes. Would it be okay with you if I explained how I understand the body to work, and from that sense?
Yeah, go for it.
Now, what I will do is I will start right from the start, because it's often good to make sure that we're on the same page over the whole page, rather than me making assumptions as to where you are and then jumping in and then finding out that actually we have different understandings of some earlier steps. So I might be teaching you to suck eggs at parts here, but hopefully it'll give you a full picture. So the general way that your body works is that you've got sensors throughout your body that live at the end of nerve fibres. And you've got some key types of sensors in your body. Now, we've got special ones for light in your eyes, but most of the other ones are for three things. So there are mechanical ones that look for pressure or stretch. There are thermal ones that look for hot or cold. And there are chemical ones that will look for smelly chemicals in your nose, tasty chemicals in your tongue, but also hormones are chemicals that your body makes that you will have sensors for. Inflammation has chemicals associated with it that you've got sensors for, or even if I put a chemical on my skin. So if you imagine if I put some deep heat on the outside of my finger there is a pepper inside that stimulates sensors.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Now, each sensor has its own level or amount of stimulation it needs before it gets activated, and some sensors have very low thresholds and others have very high, and everything in between. That allows us to perceive the intensity of whatever stimulation they're looking for. Once a sensor is activated, it will send information into your body. And then once it arrives in your body, you have to interpret what that means. Okay, and then based upon that interpretation, you will decide what to do, and usually that will involve some form of action, but also a perception. So our awareness of what's going on. So if we go back to that example of putting the deep heat or the Tiger Balm that's got the pepper in it on my skin, that actually the sensors that look for that chemical are on the end of nerve cells that normally look for hot stuff. And so when that information arrives in the body, it interprets there's something hot on the outside of my finger. And so what it does as a result of that is it creates the perception of a hot finger, but also it takes action to get rid of excessive heat. And so it will dilate my blood vessels there to get rid of that heat. And so that's an effective way of responding to that stimulation. Now, as a process, that's really good, but it's quite processor heavy because it's always feedback loops for using that, and it's a little bit slow. So a lot of the time what your body is doing is it's using what it already knows to predict what's going on, and then it's deciding what to do based upon that prediction.
Okay.
But because that prediction results in actions and experiences, those will all then stimulate sensors, and that enables the system in real time to update what it knows. And so that's a much more efficient process because it's using what it already has access to rather than having to process that whole gambit of information. So that's very efficient as a system, but it does create the opportunity for prediction errors. So if we imagine with my deep heat, well then when I look at my finger, it looks red. If I feel it with my other hand, it feels warm. So that confirms to me that that deep heat has warmed my finger. Whereas actually I have warmed my finger by dilating those blood vessels, and not only that, that loses heat because that's the way that process works.
Yeah.
And so it's actually giving me some deep cooling rather than some deep heating.